The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining today's webinar. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Hello, thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Fundraising for Farm to School. In the interest of time, we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to start off with giving you a brief roadmap of how we'll spend this next hour. We'll start off with about 10 minutes of housekeeping. So I'll introduce myself, tell you more about the National Farm to School Network in case you're not familiar, and tell you more about the logistics of using the webinar. Then we'll spend about 35 minutes on a fundraising tool deep dive that I'm really excited to share with you today. We'll spend about 15 minutes wrapping up today's webinar with some general fundraising tips and advice, and then we will kind of close the webinar. Just wanted to note, you can see with this roadmap, fundraising for your organization is really specific to your needs and sort of where you are as an organization, and every organization is different. Unfortunately, there's no way we can cover all the topics that might be of interest to you in just an hour and in a group format. So in the fundraising tips and advice section, I'll share a few opportunities for you to work with us and for us to work together if you need more support or a thought partnership on your fundraising activities. And with that, we'll jump in. Oops, sorry. All right, so we'll start off with housekeeping, as I mentioned. So I wanted to start off with a few details about GoToWebinar. So today's webinar is public, it's open to the public, and it is being recorded. And after the webinar, the slides we share and the recording itself will be sent to those who registered for the webinar, and they'll also be available in the resources section of the National Farm to School Network's website, which is farmtoschool.org. I'm really happy to be joined today by our communications manager, Anna Mullen, who is moderating the question box today. So what that means for you is that when you type your questions into the question box, Anna will be able to see them. And so if you have technical questions, like you're having trouble hearing me, or you're having an issue with the GoToWebinar platform, or if you have some substantive questions, so you have questions about what we're talking about, questions you'd like a speaker to answer, go ahead and type those into the question box. What we'll do is we'll pause at the end of each section. We'll have Anna share with us the questions that have come in, and we'll take a stab and do our best at answering them. So the big takeaway is don't save your questions until the end. As you have questions, as you think of something you'd like to know, please go ahead and type it into the question box right now, anytime, and then we'll answer those at the end of each section of the webinar. I'm going to start off with an introduction. My name is Leah Madry. I serve as Development Director for the National Farm to School Network. I am based in Illinois, just outside of Chicago. My role at NFSN is to really work on fundraising at the national level, so across all the fundraising revenue streams you might think of and that we'll touch on today, as well as hoping and trying to support the great work our partners are doing to fundraise for their organizations at the state level. Previously, before joining the National Farm to School Network, I've worked in development at several other nonprofits, including other collective action organizations and education nonprofits. And I also spent some time doing nonprofit consulting. So I spent a lot of time advising nonprofits and other organizations on their fundraising, and really excited to talk with you about fundraising today. So I wanted to start off in recognition that folks on the line aren't all partners of NFSN or maybe haven't worked with NFSN in the past. So I just wanted to start off telling you a little bit about how we think about farm to school and what we do at the National Farm to School Network. So for farm to school, we think about three core elements. The first is procurement, so bringing local healthy food into schools as meals, snacks, and taste tests. The second is food and agriculture education, so teaching young people about food and farms, where their food comes from, and food systems. And last is school gardens, that kind of magical hands-on learning that comes from a young person being able to grow something themselves. It's really incredible, and we know it's an entry point for a lot of schools and communities to farm to school. And of course, farm to school is a grassroots movement. So farm to school, these core elements, some or all might be happening in a specific school or community, but it's grassroots. So it's meant to be driven by the community's interests. And then why farm to school? So we think about it at the National Farm to School Network as a triple win, right? So kids win through health and habits that are lifelong. Farmers win through the economic opportunities they can have with schools as a market for their food products. And then communities win by strengthening the local economy through buying local, by kids taking the lessons they're learning in school back home with them to their families, and building community around food. So for our network, as you can see here, we're really proud to kind of work with many different partners and organizations. At the National Farm to School Network, we were founded in 2007. And as you can see, we've grown our network since then to over 20,000 members. We have our national staff, including myself, and we're based all over the country. We have our advisory board, and then at the heart of our work, we have our core and supporting partners in each state, DC, and the territories. When we think about what we do, we work to serve as the information, advocacy, and networking hub for communities that are working to bring or expand farm to school activities. So using our network model, we work to connect people to people, people to resources, and people to policy. And as you can see in the last decade, through the work of our partners and organizations invested in farm to school across the country, we've all really been able to move the needle on farm to school and lead to unprecedented growth in farm to school nationwide, going from just a handful of schools to over 42,000 schools, which is very exciting. So that wraps up the housekeeping section of this webinar. And so now we're ready to dive into kind of more of the substance. So we'll start with this fundraising tool deep dive that I mentioned earlier. Hopefully you could tell from the agenda that in the very limited time we have together today, my hope is to kind of open your eyes to this new tool that we'll be talking about and kind of give you the opportunity to dive deep into that and ask what questions you have and be able to share that with others. And then as I showed in the agenda, we'll spend the last 15 minutes or so talking about, beyond this specific tool, some kind of general strategies and tips and advice when it comes to thinking about fundraising for your organization's farm to school work. So we'll start off with this deep dive for one specific tool, which is FarmRaiser. So FarmRaiser, is all about healthy school fundraising. So it's a platform you can use to do that. The National Farm to School Network has just launched a new partnership with FarmRaiser, so I'll tell you a little bit about that. And we're really excited to have an expert from FarmRaiser with us today to help share all the details. So when we're talking about FarmRaiser, I'll aim to answer some initial questions you might have, like, what is FarmRaiser? Why is it relevant to me or to my organization? What partnership does the National Farm to School Network have with FarmRaiser? How does it work? And then we'll have our FarmRaiser expert kind of do a demo for us, share some additional details, and then we'll have time for Q&A and answer the questions that have come in. So as a reminder, again, as we're talking about FarmRaiser and you have questions, excuse me, please feel free to type them into the question box at any point, and then we'll answer them at the end of our FarmRaiser discussion. So I want to start off with what is FarmRaiser? You don't have to read all this, but I wanted to make sure you have it. As I said, I'll be sending out these slides so you can share with others and have it for future reference. But kind of when I think about FarmRaiser as a fundraiser myself, here's how I sort of explain it to others, which is FarmRaiser is a really good platform for healthy fundraising. So they work to connect local farms and food artisans to organizations that are trying to raise money for their cause. So the idea is that where some schools or maybe smaller nonprofits in the past have perhaps sold candy bars or magazines or something like that door to door to raise money for their organization, this new opportunity with FarmRaiser is to actually have a fundraiser that's focused on healthy local food, which is aligned with the work that we do in Farm to School, and that's online to make it a little easier to conduct the fundraiser. So how it works at a really high level, and again, our expert from FarmRaiser will get into the weeds with us, but at a high level, how it works is that you create an online page and it acts as sort of a mobile marketplace for your fundraiser. So the fundraiser is you're selling healthy local products. You can choose which ones you sell, and you sell those to raise money. And individuals just have to go to your customized website, and on that website, they can place the order for the product that you're selling. And so that's really it, which is great. So then at the end of the sale, you kind of set that end date, and when it ends, you help distribute the local products to the customers who bought them for your fundraiser. And then financially, how it works is that fundraiser will pay the supplier. So for example, if you're selling batches of strawberries, FarmRaiser would pay the farmer, as FarmRaiser would subtract its fees and then send the remaining proceeds to your organization. There aren't any upfront costs, and the organization is guaranteed to keep at least 45% of every sale. And we'll get into kind of the fees and what that looks like. We'll hear from FarmRaiser on how that works. So why is this relevant? So obviously, all of our organizations are working to fundraise for this important work that we do. And community-based fundraising, I hear time and again, talking to many of our partners and schools doing farm to school work or aspiring to do more farm to school work, is that fundraising is hard, right? So that's why we have webinars like these. And that's why I'm excited to share this tool today, because this is a really easy, mission-aligned way to raise money for your organization. I think the fact that it's online and streamlined makes it a lot easier. I think that a lot of times organizations will try to do smaller scale fundraisers, but they wind up being enormously time consuming because of all the back and forth and logistics. So this is a great opportunity to make that a little bit easier. And I just want to note that, there are some folks on the call today the webinar today, who are probably from larger organizations or organizations that are, state networks, for example, and maybe this kind of community-based fundraising isn't as much of what you do or what you want to be doing to raise kind of larger dollar amounts. So, and for that, I want to just point out, one, that FarmRaiser is actually a great platform to really raise a meaningful amount of money, depending on what your goals are and what your capacity is and how much outreach you do. So we'll get into kind of talking about what range of funds organizations raise through FarmRaiser. But the other thing I would point out is just that I think all of us, whether our organizations directly or others we work with, other schools we work with, even if this isn't the fundraiser maybe that we would want to try tomorrow, chances are there's an organization we work with or know that this would be a great fit for. So I hope you'll have your listening ears on, both for your organization, if this kind of community-based fundraising is something you're hoping to do more of, and for others who come in contact with or you work with, maybe across your state or territory, that would be interested. So I'd also want to tell you a little bit about what our actual partnership looks like with FarmRaiser. So essentially how it works is FarmRaiser is free to use. As I mentioned, there are no upfront costs. So you go on FarmRaiser's website, you decide to set up your campaign. And normally you kind of get the money back that you make, right? You fundraise, people buy the products you select, and after the fees and costs, you get the money back. Well, through NFSN's partnership, in addition to that, you get kind of what I like to call bonus money on top of what you raise. So looking at the slide here, let's say your campaign raises between $500 and $999. In that case, because of our partnership with FarmRaiser, you get an extra $40 above what you raised, and then $10 actually goes back to NFSN to help us advance our work to grow the farm to school movement across the country. And then if you raise through your campaign more than, $1,000 or more, you get an extra $75 on top of what you raised. And then again, $25 goes back to NFSN and our work to grow farm to school in communities across the nation. So that's how our partnership works. There are just a few requirements to keep in mind. In order to be eligible for this bonus money, as I referred to it as, you have to do three things. One, you have to start off at NFSN's page on FarmRaiser's website, and I've listed it there in bold. It's farmtoschool.farmraiser.com. So you just have to start there, and you can create your campaign from there, and our FarmRaiser representative will tell us all about it and show us how to do it with a demo. Second requirement is that it has to be your organization's first time running a fundraiser through FarmRaiser. So what that means is if you've run one before, a fundraising campaign before through FarmRaiser, unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible for the bonus, but of course you can keep using FarmRaiser. Hopefully you love it. And the third requirement is you do have to, of course, actually complete the campaign. So I just want to give you a couple examples to demonstrate how this works. So, So let's say your organization launches a campaign through FarmRaiser, meeting all those requirements, and you raise $500. Well, instead of just taking home the proceeds from $500, it would be based on $540 because you'd get that extra $40 there, and then $10 would go toward the farm to school movement through NFSN. So that's one example. Let's say you raise $2,000. So then you'd get that extra $75 on top of what you raised, and then $25 would go toward NFSN and advancing farm to school. So I'm going to give you a couple of trickier examples to demonstrate the requirements piece. So another example is if you raised $5,000, but you had done a FarmRaiser fundraiser maybe a few years ago. Well, in that case, you unfortunately would not be eligible for that extra $75 on top of what you raised. Another example, if let's say your organization wanted to start slow and set a goal of raise $100, and you exceeded that and you actually raised $250. That is wonderful, but unfortunately you have to raise at least $500 to be eligible to get the bonus money. So you can see the lowest kind of bracket starts at $500. So just keep in mind, you need to get to at least $500. And last but not least, let's say you raised $550, but you just went to farmraiser.com and created your campaign. That's wonderful. We're excited you raised $550, but unfortunately you wouldn't be eligible for the extra $40 because you didn't start off at the farmtoschool.farmraiser.com page. We're really thankful and excited to be able to offer this to folks engaged with our network as a kind of bonus and hopefully incentive to make you excited to do more fundraising and think outside the box of different opportunities you can have to raise money for your organization. So it's kind of a special benefit FarmRaiser is offering to organizations associated with NFSN. So that's why you just have to start at the farmtoschool.farmraiser.com website so that we can track it and make sure you get the bonus money involved. And with that, I am excited for us to be able to do a demo and learn some more details from Mariana from FarmRaiser. Mariana, thank you so much for joining us. I will go ahead and pass the presenting screen to you so that you can do a demo.
Perfect. Thanks, Leah. Bear with me for 1 minute. It takes a couple seconds to switch over. Okay, so like Leah said, my name is Mariana LaFianza, and I am a cultivator at FarmRaiser, which basically means that I work with all of the organizations and all of the campaigns to make your fundraising as successful as it can be. So first, I'm going to go over a little bit more of an overview of FarmRaiser. Leah had sent over some questions that people had submitted previously, so we'll go over some answers to those and just some common questions, and then I'll go into a demo specifically of what our platform looks like and more specifically what kinds of tools we have available. So like Leah said, FarmRaiser is a different approach to product fundraising. We connect organizations with healthy and local products to sell instead of things that are either unhealthy or less sustainable and that don't necessarily keep profits within the community. So who can participate in a FarmRaiser? Pretty much anyone can do a FarmRaiser. We have all different kinds of organizations, including schools, 4-H clubs, bands, choirs, sports teams, you name it. They've probably done a FarmRaiser. We do require that any proceeds we send do go to an organization and not necessarily an individual, but pretty much any group that needs to fundraise or is looking for a different way to fundraise can fundraise through us. If you are an individual that needs to do some fundraising for something like a school trip or something like that, we can definitely work that out and create a new market for you. We just ask that you contact us separately and we can work out the best way to approach that. So what do we mean by healthy and local products? Local products vary depending on where the organization is and what product specifically they're looking for, but usually it's within 50 miles of the organization. We really want to try as often as possible to keep the products that you're selling local and within your community. If you're in a place where you're looking for a specific kind of product that might not necessarily be in your area, we also have national products that are available for any group that can be sold. We can also always source locally in your area to look for specific products if you're looking for something specifically. And then healthy. So we've all seen the fundraisers with the candy bars that aren't always so good for anyone to be consuming. So what we mean by healthy products, things like fresh produce, honey, plants, seeds, healthy artisan snacks, anything low sugar, high nutrients, or that really brings awareness about agriculture, local food systems, eating more produce, things like that. How do our vendors benefit? So how this works is suppliers offer products through our platform. So they're not donating these products. We do pay them for these products. They provide them at a wholesale rate, so schools can set them at a retail price and still get a really high profit. But they do get paid for these products. The other way that our vendors benefit is through exposure. So anyone that's going to look at your fundraising market sees their products. You can look and read more about their company and can purchase these products. We also provide personalized customer lists and data about which products are selling and at what prices to our vendors, which is useful information for them to have. So at the end of your sale, you will receive your products. So basically, vendors say, how they can get products to you. Usually this is either being shipped to you or delivered, especially if it's produce, it will be delivered, or you can go and pick it up. So vendors say when they create their profile which of these options they do. At the end of your campaign, you go in and decide which method works best for you, and work with them to make sure your products get there on time. So all of your orders will be delivered to your organization's address. We don't accommodate shipping to individual customers just because shipping costs get really expensive and it really cuts into your profits. So all of the products will arrive to your organization. We provide you all the tools you need to separate those orders. And you guys get to have a really fun distribution day, giving out all the products. People are always really excited to see what they get. So for your proceeds, how this works is 5 days after your distribution date, we will send you a closeout letter with a breakdown of costs and profits and instructions about payments. If you tend to do more paper sales and you had more checks in cash, you can deposit those checks in cash and we will give you instructions on how to send one check to cover any costs you have. If you have more online sales, we will issue you a proceeds check at the end of that time period. So costs associated with FarmRaiser. We take a 10% flat FarmRaiser platform fee right off the top of your retail sales, and that's it. Doesn't matter how much you raise, that fee, it stays the same. The other cost is the cost of the products. So we do get a lower cost of products in order to help increase your profits, but we do have to pay for those things. Any shipping or delivery costs that might apply. We do offer FarmRaiser bags to help you distribute, especially distribute produce. But if you prefer for us not to send the bags, you can let us know, and we won't send those to you. And then the last thing is sales tax. Most organizations, especially schools and nonprofits, have a sales exemption certificate, so this doesn't apply. But just in case you don't, the supplier might apply sales tax to your order, but that's not usually the case. How much money can you make? It's really important to us that our organizations make a high profit margin. It's one of our core values. So to give you an example, a typical campaign with 25 students or individuals will sell about $3,500 in products. And the average customer transaction is $41, which means on average, the customers coming to your market will spend that amount. These are typical numbers. We've had groups sell way more with way fewer students. So it really depends on your organization and the needs that you have. So this is an example of what the page will look like that you will go to that Leo was talking about, and I can move over here. So this is the National Farm to School Network and FarmRaiser landing page that we customized for National Farm to School Network and their partners to use. So on this page, you will see general information about FarmRaiser and our partnership, kind of a general overview on how FarmRaiser works, and then also the specifics that Leah just went over about the bonus money, as well as some sample products that you could add to your campaign. So when you come to this page, all you have to do is put your organization name, your email address, click that you're not a robot, and register. That's all you have to do to register. Shortly after, you'll get an email from us giving you further instructions about accessing your FarmRaiser page. So when you log into your FarmRaiser profile, this is the profile for your organization. The first thing you'll be directed to is this screen, which has all of your profile information. So organization information, the contact person for whoever's going to be running your fundraiser, and your fundraising goals and background information. Once you fill that out, you can get to the fun part and start a campaign. So when you go to add, you can click Add New Campaign. You'll go to this screen. So you fill out all of your campaign information. You can put your organization's logo or cover image in here, the dates, your fundraising goal, and your distribution day. When you toggle down, you'll see all of the products available to you. This is just a sample market that I put together for this webinar, but you can see we have 2 donation options that will always be added to your market, a couple of produce options, some fun value added products, and then some seed options. So we work with each organization individually to make sure that we create a market based on what you're looking for, what you're interested in selling. And then you go through, click the products that you want. You'll see that when you select an item, we'll give you a recommended selling price, which is guaranteed to get you at least 45% profit margin on most items. But this price you can change either higher or lower depending on what your goals are for your fundraiser and what your profit needs are. So the retail price is flexible, and we leave it up to our organizers to create a price that works best for them. So once you create your campaign, you'll get access to a screen like this, which is what we call our organizer dashboard. So you'll see it will tell you how many days left you have in your fundraiser, what your fundraising goal is, and then all kinds of information. So we have what we call a champions feature, which is basically you can register individual sellers or individual students to create their own markets. What this does is, one, you're able to track how much an individual has sold, which is helpful, especially if an organization is raising money for a school trip. And they need to break down the profits by individual. What this also does is it keeps track of each purchase, so you know when it comes distribution, which individual each purchase is associated with and who those items might need to go home with. You also have a Manage Products tab here where you can remove products, add products, change prices of products. List of vendors. This is the shipping options. So this is what I was talking about. So when it gets closer to the end of your campaign, you'll be able to go in, select your shipping preferences, and get in contact with vendors if you need to. If you need to update any of your campaign information, you can do it here. Once orders start coming in, you'll be able to get all the order information here. We also realize that sometimes it's easier for people to sell on paper, or people might not necessarily be able to have access to a computer or a mobile device to access their fundraising market with. So we do create a paper brochure that looks like this, as well as a paper order form that you guys can customize and use, and then put it back into the platform to track sales. At the end of your sales, we give you what we call fulfillment day docs, which are all of your customer receipts, all of your order information that you need in order to distribute properly and effectively. Some of the other tools we offer, when you create a campaign, we'll send you what we call launch materials. So those have some useful information in there, including a template parent letter that can be edited and sent out. We send you instructions and a specific code on how to register champions, as well as the link to your market that you can send out via email, social media, however you get in contact with people. And the other thing that once you finish your first FarmRaiser with us is that in any fundraiser that you do after the first one, we have all of your customer information. So for every campaign that you have, we're able to send reminders or information about your campaign to past customers to help you increase sales. So that is a general overview of how FarmRaiser works. Leah, if there are any questions I could answer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mariana. I think we have a number of questions, which is great. I will go ahead and get the slide deck going. And while I'm doing that, Anna, do you want to start sharing some questions that we could answer?
Sure, we've had a lot of great questions come in, and I'll start from some of the earliest ones that came in. We have some folks joining us who are from overseas. Is FarmRaiser just a tool for folks in the US?
Well, we recently branched into Canada. So most of our sales do happen in the US, but we have had requests from campaigns overseas, and we deal with those on an individual basis. So yes, it is possible, depending on where you are and what products we have available.
Here's another question that
I'm sorry to quickly interject. So if folks had questions about that, could they just contact you directly, Mariana?
Yep. You can either contact me directly or on our website. There's a general info email address that people can send questions to also.
The next question we had is one that I think you started to touch on, but maybe you can clarify a bit more, Mariana. Do the goods that are sold through, does it have to be goods that are sold through fundraise or through FarmRaiser, or can FarmRaiser be used as a cash fundraising platform as well? So is it only goods that are sold, or can it be used to fundraise cold hard cash?
We do, so as I showed, there's two direct donation options that we have available. So one is just a straight cash direct donation. The other is what we call a community basket. So what that does is it's a direct donation option, but it splits the proceeds between the organization that's raising money and usually a local community food bank to get fresh produce to the local food bank. Some groups like to customize what that other donation goes to, so we're able to do that and create customized donation options to whatever organization or cause they want to donate that to. But yes, you can do FarmRaisers with just those options if you want to.
Great. So here's a question from someone who's in Montana that says that it doesn't look like Montana has very many vendors. Is there a way for them to connect with potential vendors and connect those vendors to FarmRaiser so that there's more of a viable option for FarmRaiser in that state?
Yes. So Montana is somewhere where we're growing. We have a school that's done a couple of fundraisers with us there that has sent us a list of vendors to connect with. So it is something we're actively looking into. But yes, if you're in Montana and you're interested in doing a FarmRaiser, one, we're happy to source product for you. If you let us know what area you're in, that's not a problem. And also, if you know really cool nurseries or produce suppliers or another cool vendor that you'd like to sell in your market, you can give us those recommendations also, and we're happy to reach out to them.
And this is, there's several questions here about how you source local products. And so maybe, can you talk a little bit more about that? How is it that you connect with local farmers, or how local farmers or product producers can connect with FarmRaiser?
Sure. So we source in a couple of different ways. We either because an organization that's already on our platform is looking specifically for a kind of product. So we are looking to fill a need there, or because we're just trying to expand what we have available. So we research and connect with and talk to local companies to source those products. On the other side of that, suppliers also find us. So they go to our website, they can register as a supplier on our platform. We talk to them about what kind of products they have and if they have wholesale pricing available, and then we can set them up with an account. Does that answer the question?
I think so. If that didn't answer the question of the person who sent it in, please message and we can ask more. Here's a question from someone who says that they are a nonprofit farm and are wondering if they could be both supplier and beneficiary with the FarmRaiser platform. Could they sell their own product?
Yes, we've actually had a couple of organizations do this. So you can create your own campaign to raise money, but also sell your products either in your own campaign or supplying other campaigns. So we've had a couple of organizations do this. We also we have a lot of school gardens that fundraise with us, and some of the larger school gardens like to sell some of the produce that they grow in addition to some other products. So that's always an option too.
Great. Leah, this is maybe a question you can help jump in on. We have several core and supporting partners of the National Farm School Network Online and are wondering how they might use FarmRaiser for a statewide network. Any ideas of how networks might help leverage this tool?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, so I think my initial thought when I was thinking about that is I think that the only barrier to leveraging this as a statewide network is just like distribution, I imagine, right? Like if you have folks who are buying the products from across the state and they're dropped off to your office, how you're getting them there. I guess Mariana, I'm curious, if you can, I heard you when you said that, you can only do one drop-off location, but can the organization like select a specific drop-off location? Maybe they do one campaign where the drop-off location is their office in one city, but maybe they want to do another campaign at the same time or later that has a drop-off location somewhere else. Sort of how does that work? How does it work if you want to distribute the products in kind of a broad area? Are there any tools or ways that you're able to help with that?
Yeah, so we can definitely set up multiple campaigns and set up different drop-off points for each location for larger networks like that. It's also a good situation where things like cash donations are helpful, so you don't have to get products to everybody and can do it more locally. But yeah, if larger networks can want to break up into smaller, more local campaigns, that's definitely something that's doable.
And just to follow up on that, Mariana, I know that you said there's that champions feature in the platform. So theoretically, if you're a state level network and you want to fundraise for across the state, and maybe you're working with a few other partners in the state, you could all use the same campaign, and then you could use that, I think you said it was champions button, to kind of break down who's raising what. So when it comes time to divide the funds, the money raised, if you needed to divide it all or just track what people are doing, you could use that as well, right?
Yes, exactly. That's what that purpose is. And we do it all the time, where we break down what percentage of the profits goes to which champion.
And just one other follow-up idea on that, to this original question. If someone said they were fundraising at a statewide level, but it was just impossible, they thought it would be too difficult to have so many different campaigns going, and maybe they wanted to just see if they could pay a little extra, whatever the delivery fee is, to have the products delivered to 2 sites or 3 sites instead of just one. I know that there would be extra fees incurred there, but is that something people could, in like campaign by campaign basis, kind of ask for? Is that an option?
If groups are interested in that, that's something that we would work out probably on a case-by-case basis, just depending on what suppliers what the capacity was and how big a state was. But yeah, that's it's something that we could talk about and work out solutions to.
Do we have time for more questions, Leah?
Yeah, I think we probably have a couple more minutes.
So a question about direct donations, which was something we talked about a little bit ago. When an organization adds that direct donation option to their fundraiser, are those funds tax deductible?
You're donating to it would depend on the organization, probably. We do have some for-profit groups that do fundraising that probably would not be tax deductible. But yeah, if it's for a school or a nonprofit organization, you should be able to deduct it off of your taxes. We also, when you go to checkout, in addition to just like the direct donation product, people do have the option to add an additional cash donation at checkout as well.
And then Mariana, could we share, or maybe I'll tell folks that we can share contact information, so if they have additional questions that come up, and especially specific maybe to their situations or the ideas they're thinking of, that they can connect with the FarmRaiser team?
Yes, I can pass that contact information along to you guys and have you send it out. Would that be the easiest way to do that?
Yeah, and then we'll send it out in the follow-up email after this webinar. That'll also have the recording to the webinar and the slides that we're sharing.
Absolutely. Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Mariana. I know there are more questions, so as Anna alluded to, please, once we send out Mariana's contact information, please feel free to reach out to her directly if it's a kind of technical question about FarmRaiser, or reach out to me if you have questions about NFSN's partnership with FarmRaiser. We're really excited about this, and by all the questions, hopefully you're excited as well, and we'll find this useful. So I think Mariana will be able to stick with us for the next 15 minutes, and we'll probably have time for a few questions at the end. So if we have time, we can come back and answer a little bit more of those. So thank you, Mariana. It's really helpful.
Thank you.
So that wraps up our deep dive. And so we just want to spend the last 15 minutes or so kind of diving into a bit of fundraising, just tips and advice. Again, because we have limited time together, unfortunately, these are kind of going to be broad, and I think maybe a little bit of like kind of some entry-level tips, but certainly there are opportunities to go to the 201 level, and we'll talk about ways to do that together. So as always, I would be remiss if I didn't mention opportunities for funding your organization. That includes government grants. It's grant application season for many of us, so I just want to make sure this is on your radar. If you go to Grants.Gov, you can see a screenshot of the page you'll land at. If you click register at the top, you can create a free account and subscribe for updates. It's really nice because you can select what specific agencies or grant opportunities you want to hear about. So then if there's an RFA, a request for applications released, something you can apply for, then you can know right away and start working early. Anyone who's ever had to complete a government grant knows that starting early is really important. So that can be a great tool. I also wanted to share this beautiful, beautiful chart from our friends at the Office of Community Food Systems at the USDA. It shows, and I just pulled it from the website right at the top there, so you can visit that website to get it yourself. But it shows the different funding opportunities, both grants and loans, available for farm-to-school activities. And it's really nice because it breaks it down by organization type. So if you're a government agency, if you're a higher education institute, school, nonprofit, so forth. So you can see the different avenues for grant funding there. Please, of course, keep in mind that each grant application is very specific in its eligibility. So just because it's listed here as something you might be able to apply for doesn't necessarily mean that you would be eligible. So just note, this is a kind of a starting point. And to that end, I want to just talk a few minutes about the USDA Farm to School Grant Program. I included a link to where you can learn more about it in that first bullet point. This grant, the RFA, the request for applications, it changes every year and it's announced on an annual basis. So you can see there what was announced, the kind of timeline and details for the last grant cycle. So there were planning, implementation, and training grant tracks. So planning grants were more along the lines of if you're just getting started with farm to school. Implementation grants were more if you've kind of planted the seeds, if you'll allow me that. If you planted the seeds and you want to kind of move forward and do more, and training grants to kind of use your expertise and train others. And you can see the award amounts range from $20,000 to $100,000. And you can see the dates that open, the RFA open and close last cycle. So keep your eyes and ears open for announcements around this, the upcoming grant cycle, typically the same kind of time of year. But again, if you go to Grants.Gov and subscribe, you can be the first to know. If you also go to the Farm to School Grant Program, you can subscribe to the DIRT, which is an amazing newsletter from USDA that gives you more information about funding opportunities and other things. Just key considerations to keep in mind. I think start thinking now. If this is something you're interested in or you might want to do, obviously you have to wait until the RFA opens this fall to figure out all the details and if you're eligible and what exactly the offerings will be for grant tracks this time around. But start thinking now if you want to do this and kind of the key elements. So in the past, there's a funding match requirement. So you need to think about where your match would come from. Think about whether you would work with schools, because working with schools is kind of a piece of it, depending on which track you apply for, and letters of support. So I think you should be able to view last year's RFA online, so you can look through that just to get ideas of what the match looked like and eligibility looked like last time around. So I encourage you to start thinking now, but just remember it changes every year. Keep your eyes open and ears open for the coming year. And I just wanted to let you know that we, for the second year at the National Farm to School Network, will be offering consultation services for organizations that would like some help or support with their application for the USDA Farm to School Grant Program that I was just talking about. So this slide is in handout form on our website, and it should be on the side panel of this webinar screen. But if you go to farmtoschool.org/consultation, you can learn more. But essentially, we have two offerings. One, as shown here, option one is if you need support during the application process itself. So you'd like feedback on your application, you'd like help thinking through the evaluation elements of your application, or just some thought partnership in figuring out what you'd apply for or what it would logistically look like. We're available to offer those services. Just noting though that because that's the application process, you need to have funding to be able to afford those services kind of upfront. And we know that's really hard for some organizations. So that's why we have the second offering, which you can see here. This is nothing upfront. This is just working with NFSN to write. Let's say you need support. If you receive the grant, you need some support with carrying out the evaluation, or you'd like, if you receive the grant, to incorporate into that a needs and readiness assessment, or you need some help making that action plan during the grant period, or maybe some ongoing coaching to kind of coach your project lead on how to facilitate stakeholder meetings, or some other element of your grant If you need help implementing that, NFSN is available to do that. And you can talk to us once the RFA opens about, and even in advance, we're happy to kind of start thinking early now over the summer, but talk to us about what we could offer and what support you need if you actually receive the grant. And then what you can do is you can write that into your budget for your grant proposal. And then if you receive the grant, we can provide those services. And if you don't receive them, we obviously wouldn't provide them. You wouldn't need to pay for them. But again, you can learn more about this on our website, as well as contact us if you'd like to learn more. I just wanted to mention, we talked about government grants. I wanted to put a plug in for foundation grants. Sometimes folks are very familiar with government grants, but not as much with foundations. I want to make sure this is on your radar. This is a free tool that fundraisers like myself use a lot. And you can see the website at the top. That's the screen you'll see when you visit it. If you click subscribe in the middle, you can subscribe for free. And it's a great database of different funders organized by state, as well as funding areas. So if you wanted to look for education funders or health funders or environmental funders, you could kind of find them and then use that as a starting point for your research to figure out who to potentially submit foundation grants applications to. And just wanted to know, once you have kind of ideas of grants you'd like to apply for, this is especially relevant in the foundation context, there are a lot of things you can do to make sure you're prepared and have the best chance. So you want to join the funders email list for announcements if that's an option. You'll want to review kind of what are the grant types, what are the eligibility requirements, and who's been successful in the past in terms of past grantees and past projects to give you ideas to make sure you're kind of making a good use of your time and not spending a lot of time in a grant that doesn't have a lot of possibility for your organization because of eligibility or something else. And just if it's possible, not necessarily with government grants, but with foundation grants, you can try to build relationships with funders. Many funders will be willing to have a 20-minute phone call with you to learn more about your organization and share whether they think you might be a fit for their funding, or at least give you some insight into sort of how they think about their funding strategies as a funder. And just I think the last piece of advice I always give is just be upfront with yourself and honest about whether the opportunity is a good fit, because they are really time consuming, and assess the time commitment for all the folks who need to be involved with that. And then, of course, there are a lot of opportunities to diversify funding beyond grants, from earned income to individual giving to corporate partnerships. And again, if we had 3 hours, I could spend 3 hours on each of these, and would love to hear from you on some of the things you're working on with your organization and some of the challenges you have. But just want to make sure these are on your radar. Don't just think about grants, think about all of these things as well. And if you need a thought partner or any help kind of thinking through what those could look like with your organization, we're here to help. So a couple resources for you if you want to dig deeper with us on fundraising. One is to join our email list at farmtoschool.org/join. It's completely free. We share information about webinars like these, as well as new resources. We're working on developing a new fundraising resource, for example. So that will all be shared with our email list, so you can join. If you're interested in the USDA Farm to School Grant Program consultation I mentioned, be sure to visit farmtoschool.org/consultation to learn more and contact us to talk about how we could work together. And then last but not least, if on a one-on-one basis, you could just use some help with fundraising. So maybe it's that you have a small professional development budget for yourself or someone else on your team, or your organization as a whole, and you want to spend it on fundraising. So we could work together and support you and coach you there. Maybe you just need some ongoing coaching throughout the year and trying to make your organization more, I think, fundraising focused and get everyone engaged in fundraising. We can certainly provide that. If you're trying to diversify your revenue beyond grants and all the things I showed on that slide, I'm happy to give you a thought partner and coach and help you brainstorm and make a plan. Or if you're working on a specific project, maybe you need to make a fundraising plan and you've never done that before, or you want a long-term development strategy, and help with that. And if you just need to talk through kind of specific ideas or pain points, we're happy to connect. We offer all of these services on a consultation basis, and happy to talk to you about if that would make sense for your organization. So that wraps it up for tips and advice. I wish we had many more hours together to talk about all the things I'm sure you're wondering about. But to wrap up, I just want to thank you for your time. And we do have about 3 more minutes, and we could take a few more questions if anyone has any. Anna, have any other questions come in that we might be able to answer?
None at the moment, but we can pause and remind folks that there's that question box there in your control panel, and you can drop them in and I'll see them and can read them.
Excellent. And while folks are thinking about any questions they have, are there any FarmRaiser questions that we didn't get around to that we might be able to answer?
No, I'm just scanning through, and I think we really caught all of them.
Very good. One question I had, actually, Mariana, if you're still with us, I think you are.
Yes.
Perfect. You had talked about how folks can reach out to you with ideas for farmers or producers to sell their products. And you mentioned that you'll have them sort of register as a supplier. But what's that process like? We know that sometimes one of the barriers to farmers and producers connecting with procurement opportunities and opportunities like this is sometimes they don't have a lot of staffing or capacity to do a lot of the back and forth, or like if there's a lot of paperwork involved. So just curious at a high level, what does that process look like when someone reaches out to you about providing their food products?
Sure. So our platform obviously is a way for organizations to raise money, but it's also a tool for suppliers. So we know that a lot of our suppliers don't have the bandwidth to manage a fundraising side of their business, don't have a lot of time to be able to put into it necessarily. So we kind of take that responsibility from them and do that for them. So the process to become one of our suppliers, it's really easy. You fill out a general question registration form on our website that's very basic, things like the name of your company, whether you're a farmer or an artisan, things like that. After you register with us, someone will contact the supplier just to get some general information about what kind of products they sell and the pricing to make sure it's a fit with our platform. If it is, all they have to do is go in and update their product catalog and put their products in the website and the platform. And after that, they don't have to do a whole lot. They'll get a notification when products are added to a market, when there's the first sale, and then they get a notification when a campaign closes and there's an order to fill. So besides putting it in their products and their product catalog and updating that as they need to, they don't really need to do anything that actively engages with the fundraisers until filling an order. We take care of all of the rest of that for them.
Great. Thank you so much, Mariana. That's really helpful. Anna, did any other quick questions come in that we could tackle right now? Otherwise, we can go ahead and wrap up.
I think we can go ahead and wrap up, and any unanswered questions that come in, we'll make sure to follow up one-on-one with folks.
Sounds good. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for today's webinar. I hope you learned at least one, hopefully many new things, and I hope you'll stay in touch with us as we have more opportunities to learn together. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you, Anna and Mariana, as well, for hosting.
Thank you.